Welcome to the Centerville City Council meeting of July 16th, 2019. Council is now in session. We would like to welcome everybody that's here. I was impressed how quiet you got. I mean, that was neat. So, waiting for somebody to drop a pin. So we start with a roll call to make sure we can conduct business and that we have a quorum with us. So we'll start on the far left.
Ivy, present.
Meekum, present.
Hintz, present. McEwen, present.
Note that 4 of the 5 council members are present. Councilwoman Fillmore contacted me, and she is traveling for work, and was going to try and call in, but was unavailable to do that. So we will first start with prayer or a thought from Councilwoman Ivy.
Thank you. Our Father in heaven, we are so grateful to gather together this evening. We're grateful for the freedoms that we enjoy, for the opportunity to assemble, for the opportunity to govern ourselves. We're grateful for the favorable circumstances we have, for the safety and good season that we are having. We're grateful for the first responders in our city here and those who help us from around the outside. Grateful for those who give so much that the citizens of Centerville can enjoy a peaceful and pleasant life. We pray for thy Spirit to be with us this evening, that we can make good decisions, and that all who work on behalf of the city may be blessed, that especially that our first responders may have peace and safety and be protected in their various opportunities to interact with the public. We love thee. We thank thee for the blessings that are ours, and we pray for these things in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. If you'd all rise with me and repeat the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Well, we have a couple of fun, exciting events tonight, and I'm sure that's what draws the big crowd. So anyway, we can get them here, you know. But we love these the big events. These are the highlights, I think, for all of us that we look forward to. But before we do that, we do have an open session, and this is where anyone can come up to the microphone and express any thoughts that they may have of things that may be taking place in the city. If any of you choose to do that, I would ask you to state your name and where you're from and try and keep your comments to a couple minutes. So that session is now open, either one of these microphones, if anyone is so inclined. If no comments on that, then we'll move on to the business and these neat recognition awards we have. The first one is a citizen recognition, we were calling it, because we were trying to keep this quiet and a secret. And this is something that we want to award Mr. Jack Delestatius for all his work with the foundation over the years. And we're going to give you, Jack, a couple minutes to tell you about how that, tell us about how that came about and all that you had done on it. But our president of our foundation, John Hollingshead, is here, and he and I want to present an award to you, which Councilman Ince was very good about finding for us. And so I'll come to this side and we'll do that. We haven't had it out yet. We all looked at it. I'm not sure. I was keeping it in the mayor's office, and I didn't want to be responsible to have a break. So this says on it, Jack Del Statius, thank you for your dedicated service, Centerville Community Foundation 2002 to 2019.
Pretty long, 17 years, but what do you think? Hey, why don't you look here in the middle and we'll get a photograph of Jack?
Yeah.
Why don't you come up here?
Bill, come on.
We have, who else? Come on. You're from the foundation as well. Anyone else?
We have Brent as well too, he's on the foundation board, and Jake is as well too. Anybody else from the foundation? And this is, will be your still, not mine, right there.
That's how I get it.
Good you went back. The shorter guys up front.
Now, I think one, you have to get one with Jeff, your sweetheart.
Who is the family that has that?
And is there other family members that you want up here with you? Or just good with the two of you?
Why don't you stay? Why don't you stay?
Want me to stay? Thanks, Bill. Okay.
Congratulations. Thank you for 17 months.
Do you want the microphone for a couple minutes? Okay, it's yours.
Well, some years ago, when my wife and family and I moved to Centerville from D.C., it was sort of an experiment. We didn't sell our house back east. And we said, we're going to move for 10 years and enjoy living among a different type of community than what we're used to. I can't remember exactly the number of years, but I'll say 2 or 3 years after we were here, I came home from work and was met at the door by my wife. And she said to me, guess what? And I said, what? We're not moving. So both of us fell in love with our city, Centerville. And it has continued over these 26 years, I guess. We have a wonderful neighborhood, wonderful community, wonderful city government. It's always been wonderful. Certainly there's been some diversities at times about issues, but still, it's been a joy to be in the city and to love the city. Over that period of time, I've had the unique experience, first starting with an election, and I realized after I would walk the community, come home and say, you know, there really are some wonderful people that live in Centerville. And I felt that way for the past number of years. I've had an opportunity and a blessing, I should say, more so than ever before, to serve those that live in this great community. I can't begin to tell you the many acquaintances that I've had with the business community, with the government, and still have that same opinion about the wonderful people that live and protect us and guide us and watch after us in many different ways, and who take to heart who we are. So with those circumstances, it's easy to serve. It truly is easy to serve, because when you do so, in America, some of the greatest decisions that we make are made at the very, very simplest level, and that's through the city government or town government. Thank you, city members and who govern us now.
Thank you.
I didn't know they were going to do this today, but come on
Come on up.
On behalf of the police department, I want to personally thank you for your support as a city council member, and especially on the foundation, all you've done for the police department, and putting together, kind of spearheading some of the recognition that we've received the last couple of years, few years, banners on Main Street, the road, or the yard signs, and all the things that you've done. So very much appreciate your support and your service to the community, and especially to our department, the officers of Centerville Police Department.
What the chief was referring to is one of the projects of the foundation, and I'm sure it was Jack's idea, I wasn't mayor at that point in time, was recognizing and honoring our police and their efforts during Police Week in May. And that's what the chief was talking about with the banners and the signs and other little things that to recognize the work that they've done. And Jack was a big part behind that. So that's just one of many things that he did on the foundation. So thanks again. All right, the next item is another presentation. This is a police award presentation, and we'll have Chief Child talk about this presentation. Chief?
Thank you, Mayor and members of the council. Sorry, open my book backwards here. I am extremely proud of all the men and women who work for this department, for Centerville Police Department, and I share that as often as I can when I'm talking with people. We have just an amazing cadre of very good-hearted, very wonderful, professional people who work for our department. They are out there, and I don't want to get emotional, but they're out there day and night serving this community 24 hours a day, every minute of every day. There's not a second that they're not standing ready to watch over us, to serve this community, and I'm extremely proud of every single one of them. So with that, I'd like to recognize our detective division. Through the years we've had since becoming chief in 2015, they've been busy. Our detective division has been very, very busy. We've had some pretty significant cases, and coming from a small agency, we are limited in our resources, but we have extremely good talent within our detective division. And when I became chief in 2015, Sergeant Jake Alexander was made the sergeant and took over guidance and basic control of the detective division, and has just done an outstanding job. So I want to recognize the members of that division for some of the cases that they handled during that period of time since Jake took over. And again, we've had some very significant, very challenging cases that these gentlemen have worked. So first off, I'd like to have, he was a detective at the time, but now Sergeant Mike Dingman, come up. And I'm recognizing Michael Dingman, for his work on the following cases. Now, this first case was a very, very significant case. It was a very difficult case. It actually happened before the 2015 date, but it was such a significant case that I included in this recognition. This was a forcible sodomy case, case number 2013-001589. Took a toll on him. As you can imagine, handling that case was very involved. He handled another case, was an extensive fraud case involving 100 or more credit cards. This was case number 2016-00468. Involved a lot of man hours and a lot of work. The Jasmine Jepson homicide, 2016-000189. Again, a very challenging and involved case. The kidnapping and homicide case, 2016-00739, involving the Harrison father and son duo. And then he was the lead investigator on an officer-involved shooting that happened 2 years ago on July 4th. Again, another very stressful case that he he was involved with. I think as a detective, he wrote more subpoenas and, well, probably subpoenas than I think anybody else in the entire county. Just an excellent detective. He investigated many, many complex burglaries, robberies, assault, frauds. He was on a couple of different officer-involved shooting, critical incident task force, multiple sex crimes. So I want to recognize Sergeant Michael Deanman for his work that he has done for the community. So congratulations. Detective David Davis. So Detective David Davis has been, he's been the DARE officer. We just recently made him a regular case detective, and Officer Holly Combs is going to be our next DARE officer. So Holly's going to be going through the course and getting up on that. But as the DARE officer, Detective Davis was involved with some significant cases as well. Aggravated kidnapping sodomy case, 2017-000801. And then the strangulation aggravated assault burglary case that was just recently resolved, 2018-001527, and a number of other complex crimes that he's been involved with. And so I want to recognize him as well. Detective Jeremy Brown. Detective Jeremy Brown has been involved with a number of cases. Again, homicide case 2016-000189, the Jasmine Jepson homicide. The kidnapping homicide case involving the Harrisons. The July 4th officer-involved shooting case, which he was a part of the protocol team on that. Again, another challenging, extensive investigation. Multiple, very complex, very difficult sex crimes. Aggravated sex assault, 2018-000112. Aggravated sex abuse of a child, 2018-000638. Rape of a child, 2018-001457. Another rape of a child, 2018-00780. And then a shooting, case number 2017-001910. And then he's been just involved with a whole bunch of other cases. These guys are handling a very, very heavy caseload, and they do just an awesome job. So again, thank you, Detective Brown, for your service. Detective Mark Taggart. So Detective Taggart was heavily involved with this recent case, the strangulation aggravated assault burglary case, case number 1527. He hasn't been in the detective division very long, but that was a very complex, very difficult case and cutting edge that was involved with that. So I want to recognize him for his work on that case and multiple other cases that he's been involved with. And then finally, Sergeant Jake Alexander. Again, Jake has been in charge of the detective division since 2015. He runs a very good operation within the detective division. He's extremely, he has high integrity. He wants the job done right. He's somewhat of a perfectionist and wants things done by the book, and he does just a fantastic job. So he oversees all of these other cases and then also has a caseload himself. So I want to recognize him for some of those cases that he handled and assisted on. There was an extensive fraud case that he worked in 2015 at 1752, homicide case number 189. Again, the kidnapping homicide case, 739. The multiple officer-involved shooting situations where he was on the protocol team throughout the county. And then again, the shooting, the case number 1910. And again, just a multiple array of other crimes that he's been involved with. And I want to recognize him, his leadership, and the detective division as a whole. And this plaque will be displayed in the detective hallway down there, so it'll remain there for years to come. So, thank you. I want to recognize Sergeant Barnes in the back there. He was with the detective division, but he kind of was at the very tail end when I came on, and so he didn't get a chance to get involved in a lot of this stuff, but he was a detective as well.
So can I just say, we as city leadership and as elected officials are so grateful to all of our officer services and what they provide. I wish I could have greeted y'all beforehand. We had a meeting before and we ran out of time. I was only able to greet a few of you, but we would all love to just shake your hand and just say thank you. Thank you for lending us your husbands, your children, and for our force and for all that they do. And thank you for being here tonight. Council, anything else to say? And thank you, the Delastatius family as well too. We could adjourn council meeting now. So
I
it's been
agree,
great.
and I just want to thank our officers. They are amazing, and the families, the sacrifices you give, I know are untold, and I want you to know that your officers are always in our minds.
So thanks for being here. Anything else, Chief? Okay, thank you. All right, so you're welcome to stay. You're welcome to go get pictures and go to dinner and whatever else you had planned as well too, whatever you would like. Jack, if you want the box for that, right up here. If you, thank you for everyone for coming. So do we have some scouts left with us?
I was going to say thank you, Mayor, thank you, Council.
Thank you.
Thank you, John.
Thank you for all you do.
Yes, thanks. John is, as you know, president of the foundation. He's also involved with our Centerville Cares group as well, too. So I think I saw one of you scouts this morning, didn't I? Yeah. All of you. Yes, these scouts were doing citizenship in the community, and I got the pleasure to go down and talk to them about 5 minutes about city government. So that was a definite pleasure. So are you here as part of that requirement of that merit badge to attend a council meeting? Great. Good to have you here. Okay, let's go to item number 3, summary action calendar. This is the start of warranty period effective 7/16/2019 for Rigby Court subdivision. Do we have any discussion or questions on that anyone has? If so, we'll turn it to Brand. If not, then I would look at a motion to approve the summary action calendar.
I would make a motion to approve the items on the summary action calendar.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
I don't know, it looked like Brent wanted to say something.
I was getting ready to answer a question if there was a question.
Yeah, I thought Councilman Ince maybe had a question. We approached. If no further discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Great. Item number 4, this is a item development agreement amendment for Centerville Marketplace subdivision. This is something that just shortly before council meeting that Home Depot changed their mind on. And Lisa, do you have any further information you want to provide us there?
Yes, that's correct. We heard today that Home Depot representative let us know that Home Depot wants to withdraw this application. They're just going to go with the standard colors that they have now rather than changing their color scheme. So. you do not need to take action on this item.
Okay, great. Any further questions there? If not, we'll go to item number 5 on the agenda. This is a cooperative agreement with UDOT for use of remote control devices for school crossing lights. And there's a resolution on this one, and I think Chief's out probably with his officers, but so is there, and Randy's not here as well too. Do we have Brent or Lisa, anybody that can,
Sure.
would want to address this?
We've been working on this issue for quite some time. It was first brought to the council's attention that there could be perhaps more safety involved in our crossing lights and making it easier for the crossing guards to turn on and off those lights. But there was some staff resistance to this idea early on just because of the concerns with the adequacy of the mechanism. But I believe that the police chief and the public works director have been working with an engineer to come up with a satisfactory mechanism. So what's on your agenda tonight is a proposed interlocal agreement with UDOT, because we are requesting to put these mechanisms on the school crossing lights on Main Street, which is a UDOT owned and maintained right-of-way. So in order for us to have the authority to do that, they said, you can go ahead and give this a try, but city, you will need to be responsible for maintaining, operating, and will also be liable for any sort of injury or damage or lawsuits that might arise out of using these mechanisms. So we have to be responsible for those items as well as indemnify UDOT for those. So that's really what's on your agenda, is to just get the ball rolling so that we can have this in place, at least the agreement prior to school starting. So with that, I think the chief is here and he can add a little bit more detail about the development of this project.
Yeah, so we've been working with 2 electronic engineers for probably about a year, maybe a little bit more than a year, trying to come up with a product that is that would be beneficial to our crossing guards and increase their safety so that they're not having to get out of the car, go through snow piles, get out into traffic, make U-turns, which Robin can attest to some of the dangers that are involved with that, in order to turn on and off their lights, but to have something that is basically fail-safe, as well as having a manual ability to override it in case there is a problem, and then have some feedback. So currently it's just a blade switch that a crossing guard goes over and trips the blade switch, and the lights start flashing. We have had problems with some of our lights where maybe the blinking system has stopped working midway through a crossing, or a light stops functioning, and there's no way of knowing that, except for sometimes the crossing guards realize that traffic starts coming through faster than they would be normally if the lights are on. So we asked the engineers to come up with something to where they could use a remote control device, activate the lights, turn them on, turn them off, and have some kind of feedback on the remote itself where they could look at it and see that there was an LED light on there that indicates the lights are functioning, yes or no, and if there is a problem, like if one light's not working, that it would also indicate on that. So they've been working on that for some time. We've gone through a couple of iterations of it. They have come up with a plan or a system that they think is going to be, that it's going to fit the bill on this. We've been working with Randy Randall, meeting with these individuals. He's been looking at the schematics and how it's put together. We've had some demonstrations. And what we'd like to do is they're ready to go into basically production for the print boards on these and get some boxes up and running. And we want to get them up before school starts to have some time to play with them, make sure that they're functioning properly on our city-owned streets, so 4th East and Parish, the lights that are not on Main Street, and put them through some testing, see if we feel comfortable with them. Again, with that manual switch option that we can just disable them or take them out of the equation and just go back to the blade switch. And then once we feel like we're good there, that we're having good success with them, we're not having problems, then employ them on Main Street and that. But we'd like to get that agreement with DOT in place so that when we feel comfortable with them, we're ready to go and we don't have to cross that bridge. But we feel like we're getting close on it.
So the question I have is probably going to be for Lisa, and maybe Chief, you can fill in some of this. Since we've got the issue of indemnification, and we're doing a design with electrical engineers, who owns the IP, and is there a liability policy carried by the electrical engineers, or is the city assuming the liability for the design?
I think that's a good question. I haven't
Yeah.
really been involved in the discussion with the engineer. I don't know if we're under contract with them already, or?
We're not under any contract with them. They've been doing the R&D on this with the intent their intent is to make a business out of it.
Mm-hmm.
But we haven't been shown anything that they're an LLC or that they're any kind of an entity that has insurance. So I think right now it's, if we put those in there, it's probably the city that's going to be on the line for it.
So I can also address that, and correct me if I'm wrong, Lisa. So case law, David Church talked about this very issue regarding light and security. So whenever there's an issue like this, generally the city is responsible for that. Now, it would be our responsibility to pursue this contractor saying it was a faulty issue, but ultimately we're responsible, and then we need to try and recover or recoup our the issues from the contractor itself. So we would be ultimately responsible. Hopefully, you can recoup it from a contractor, but the issue would be don't count on it. So
Well, and
that's
if
a
their
concern.
intent is to make a business out of it, and they're
Yeah.
providing this to the city,
Right.
it's low to no cost, and we can satisfy the legal requirements of indemnification and insurance, I'm fine with it. I don't really have an issue. I'd love to see the schematics, by the way. I'd like to look at that part. But
Yeah.
that's just my concern there.
Yeah.
It is pretty
Valid.
cool. And we already have liability for all of them in the city other than on Main Street. So it's not like we're taking liability for the ones that are already on our public street. We're responsible for those already, the state isn't. And so it would just be the 3 on Main Street.
Yeah, I imagine it's just from the first blush, it makes no difference whether it was a remote box or whether a
Right.
crossing guard who didn't turn on a light or didn't notice. I mean, I don't think it changes that significantly.
That's right.
It's just that it's when things happen, the first thing they do is they sue everybody involved, and I just want to know where that chain ends. And if they are going to productize it at some point, then we do need to enter into a contract to make sure that there's some shared liability. Not that there'll be any problem, but if there is, just want to make sure we're protected.
Yeah, I agree that we probably need to have a discussion with them about them forming some kind of an entity and having some kind of liability insurance or something, I think. But I think this product is actually going to make the likelihood of the lights not functioning and crossing guards not realizing they're not functioning less likely. So I think it'll actually improve the safety, but I agree there is that liability issue.
Well, I see it from the other side as well, is if you can prove that the lights are functional, and you've got a log that says they're functional, it's much more than asking, well, did the crossing guard turn it on or off, or were the lights functional? If an accident happens, you've got the forensic digital proof that, yes, there's voltage going to those lights. We knew they were functional at the time,
Yeah.
or not, as the case may be.
Yeah, the way that they're fashioning this is to where when you turn it on, there'll be an LED light that is illuminated the entire time the lights are on. So if you look at the remote and the light is off or it's flashing, there's a problem. And so it does give you an indication. And right now it's basically if a crossing guard starts noticing traffic is going faster, then, like car after car is coming through faster, well, that's a clue that something's wrong with the lights. And so they would have to leave their post and go to the light, whereas in this case, they could look at the remote and see that it's, if there's a problem, that what, what it is.
Yeah, I can geek out on product design later, but anywhere we can log what the activity is, it helps us ultimately know, were they on station to handle the lights at the right time? Were they on long enough? Did they go off at the time we expected?
This won't show any of that.
No,
We
it won't
don't
show
have any
it,
of that
but
before.
that's what I'm saying. I would love to see the schematics, because I'd love to draw in a circuit to help them log that for future reference. That's
Yeah,
why we
and-
need to own some intellectual property here.
We can set up a meeting again, as we're trying to put these into the city-owned ones, and sit down with them and invite you, and,
I would love to be there.
yeah, that'd be good. Yeah, the
So
more
what-
input, the better.
Would there be any concern, Lisa, liability-wise, in passing this resolution until we have that worked out, or?
No, this is just an agreement between the city and UDOT to allow us to put these up, but the city certainly won't implement this until we're satisfied with the remote control devices. So, my concern is just that it takes a few months to get things through UDOT, so if we wait till the design is done, then we might be a little behind on the contract, so.
Let me just restate, I don't have any hesitation with proceeding. I'm sure the design is well architected. There's always, it's just that when you get multiple people looking at it, they tend to go for improvements, so.
Right.
I don't really have an issue with that.
Agreed.
That's why I'm waiting for Robin as the, to sponsor this resolution.
I was thinking I probably shouldn't be the one to sponsor this.
I think you should.
I think you should.
We'll let you.
Are we ready for that, or do we have further questions for the chief? Or Lisa?
I am so glad that we're finally to this point. I had hoped that we were at this point last school year, but, this year is better than next, so. Go for it, Robert.
I am totally behind this thing, too. I don't want us to hang ourselves out. I think it's something that we frankly should be getting a royalty on it, and Robin should be getting a royalty on it. She doesn't want it, and we probably won't get it, but it will provide a lot of benefit to a lot of people potentially.
Yeah, the human costs far outweighs any royalty if it saves one life. It's
And that's how I feel. I feel very strongly that it will, if not save a serious accident, it could easily save a life. And there was one year when we had 2 or 3 crossing guards that actually went to the emergency room from falling when they were turning their lights on. Actually, what they did was fall into those wooden posts, and they had so many slivers because when there's snow on the side of the road and it's plowed right up against your lights, you've got to climb up over the snowdrift to get into your lights, and so it's pretty slick. And then you've got traffic down right below you at 40 miles an hour, so if you slide off that snowbank back into the road, you're in real trouble. Or you may save a police officer's back from having to shovel where we turn the lights on and off. That might save you some money too. So I feel really good about it. I have been very interested in it long before I was on city council because I feel like it was so unsafe on certain areas in the city where we turn on the lights. One of them is up on 4th East where there's kind of a hard bend and you can't really see, so you're right there, and then you've got somebody stop turning the lights on, and you've got a bus coming the other way, and it gets a little dicey. So I'm really excited. I think it's going to make a big difference.
So with that said, do you want to make a motion?
Sure. So I will make the motion. That's my best thing. To pass resolution number 2019-07. Regarding the agreement with UDOT to allow the remote control devices on our school crossing lights.
Second.
Motion is second. Any further discussion? If not, let's do a roll call vote, starting to my far left with Councilwoman Ivy.
Aye.
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 That motion passes 4-0. Thank you, everyone. Thanks, all of you, your work on it. Okay. Number 6 on our agenda, this is the finance report. And I think this is our report for our year end. And we are thrilled to have Marcus back. And Marcus, tell us how we did for the whole year.
We did good. I mean, overall, cash balances are up, fund balances are up as well. I mean, we're good on the revenue side. We're under budget on the majority of the expenditure side. So overall, things look good. For these financials, keep in mind that they're preliminary June financials. It's really early to have good, solid June financials, and so probably in September, you'll get another version of the June financials. And the items that are going to change are related to your accounts receivable, which are the tax related to the tax revenue. We have estimates in there, but when the actuals come in, we'll adjust the receivables and the revenues. The actuals will come in the end of July and end of August. And so yeah, by the end of August, we should know those numbers.
Will that be before or after audit?
Oh, it'll be, yeah, we have to do this first before the audit.
Okay.
Yeah, so we've got to get all the numbers 100% right on before the audit. The other thing that'll change are the payables, because you're still getting invoices related to the old year. And so those invoices will come in for another 5 or 6 weeks. So it's going to add expenses to these financials.
I was hoping to see more of the parentheses disappear from the expense line, so.
Yeah, no, it's going to add more to it in most cases. I think the bigger ones are probably be in the transportation fund with all these road projects that have been going on that we haven't quite been billed yet. So that's where the majority of them it's going to come. But yeah, we'll go through this, but just keep in mind this isn't final June financials. So here's the cash by fund, and I mean I look at how we're doing this June compared to the prior 2 Junes, and in 17 we're about 900,000, 18 about 1.2 million, and this is the general fund, and then general fund this year it's 1.7 million, and so it's increasing as we're hoping, as we're planning to have it. So overall cash is up. I mean the funds with a lot of cash are the transportation and drainage, but we know that's being saved up for projects.
So Marcus, the $500,000 in the general fund, is that primarily the money that's in that we're kind of holding and getting ready to spend on the park?
No, the $500,000, I mean that would be in the park fund. Let's see, the park, there's only 86,000.
And the RAP tax fund.
The RAP tax. So the increase is just due to, I mean, the revenues were higher than the expenditures. They're low on the
I'm just talking
expense
cash
side.
balance. We're sitting on $500,000 more cash.
Right, than last June, yes.
And that's all favorable operations, as opposed to, I thought the significant chunk of that was the money that's come in that we borrowed for the park.
Yeah, that was all put in the park fund, so it never came into the general fund, that 500,000. And so it's been spent on park projects. And so, yeah, it wasn't ever part of the general fund cash. And a couple weeks ago, we did make the first payment on that, principal of 100,000, and it was about 13,000 in interest. And so we're making payments on that, but yeah, so that's just general fund, nothing to do with that.
So in follow-up to Councilman Ince, I assume that went into the park fund then in like June of 18.
Correct.
Is that right?
Yeah, last year, yep.
Because we had nothing before that, and then all of a sudden 443,000.
I should mention a big chunk of that 500,000 in general fund is for the 18-wheeler we have not received yet or paid for. So that's a big chunk of that. All right. Does that make sense? Okay.
Yeah,
Counts.
so it was, part of the budget. So we're under budget on that because we haven't purchased that yet. It got pushed back, 2 or 3 months or so. So it'll come out of the budget in 2020. So.
Yeah, for a minute there I was worried we found more change under the coach cushions, but apparently not.
No. Then if we go to the next page, I mean, it's just our restricted cash. The general fund, there's the deposits and some of the alcohol funds that is carried over from a couple of years. And then the gun range deposit and RDA funds, the theater reserve cash. And then the water fund is the developer cash that the city has on hand for projects on the water system. But any questions about cash or restricted cash? Okay, we'll jump on into the general fund summary. Now there's one little typo I just want to point out. It's correct in the actual financial statements, but if you look clear down on line 51 on the budget, that number, that 854 was amended to about 871. And so this actually does balance. If you go to page 29 in the actual financial statements, you'll see that it balances. It just wasn't updated on this summary sheet. But looking at the revenues as a whole, the property taxes came in slightly above, just barely, so we're right on budget on the property taxes. The sales tax came in at 102%, and these are some of the revenues that will change slightly. We have estimates for the May or the amounts that are coming in July and August, and so they'll change slightly. We hope they go up, but it's a chance it goes down. It was just the best estimate. The one revenue that is lower than we had hoped is the fines and forfeitures. I mean, we've kind of been watching that it's a little bit low. But overall in the general fund, I mean, the revenue looks good. The franchise fees were a little bit low. On a couple of them, there still are payments that we'll have to true up, so we have estimates in there for some of those, but we'll get those trued up when the actual amounts come in. On the expenditure side, I mean, you go through and every department is under 100% except for a couple small ones. I mean, the youth council, we've kind of talked about that, how the city cuts a $7,000 check, and so they only spend $7,000, but they have spent money that they had accumulated in prior years. And then the liquor law enforcement money is over by about $5,000, but that's a similar thing where the city receives these liquor funds and it has to be spent on liquor enforcement. So there's been some carryover from prior years, and so it's just being, that restricted cash is what's being used when it's over there. But all the other departments, I mean, look good. Overall, 94% on the expenditure side, and it might increase depending on the invoices that come in, but like I said, the bigger part of it's going to be in the transportation fund. If we go down to the next page, the RDA, not a whole lot of change in the revenue side. I mean, there's just the monthly lease payment and interest. On the expenditure side, we're under, and the reason we're under, I mean, part of it, we budget for a project that may have come up, but it didn't come up. I guess some years, certain projects will come up and you'll just have a few months to decide on it. And so it was in the budget, but that didn't happen this year. And so we're way under budget on those projects in the RDA fund. Recreation fund, we're under budget. This was one of them where we were over budget last year. And so we're looking okay this year. I don't think we'll get $40,000 of expenditures that come in over the next few weeks. I think we should be okay this year on the recreation fund. Now the RAP tax fund, we're right on the revenue projection, and the expenditures were a little bit under. We still have a payment to make to Centerpoint for the final quarter of the payment that goes to them. So that'll increase a little bit, but probably about $5,000. Cemetery fund, we're a little bit over on the revenue side. The expenditure side, we've made the approximately 80% transfer to cover for the maintenance costs. We moved that over to the general fund because that's where the maintenance expense is. And if we go down to debt service, the debt service fund on the next page, the last interest payment was slightly under what we thought. That's why there's $496 there. On the park side, I mean, we're way under budget. I mean, the amounts that are in that fund are related to the community park, to Island View, and then most of that 113 right there is the payment to the rec center for that $500,000 loan. The transportation fund, we're right on the revenue. Again, those will be some revenues that are trued up once we know the final amounts. The expenditure side, we're way under budget, but we're still seeing invoices come in. But most of those expenses now are for the 2018 slurry sale project, but we'll keep accruing the invoices in there as they come. And then the Utopia Fund, the last payment came in $184 higher than what we expected. We've looked into it, and they're telling us that payment is actually a 2020 payment. So I need to call them and double check on that, because we always planned on it being a little higher than the other 11 payments, but that one was just a little bit higher than we expected. And so I need to talk to them if I need to push off that last payment into fiscal year 2020, or if we need to keep it there. So we're still trying to work through that one. On the next fund, we start with the enterprise funds. The operating revenue, line 4, I mean, it came in 99%, so right where we planned. Operating expenditures are line 6, and that's at 97%, so operations looks right on. We're under on the capital projects in the water fund, but those are tough to predict because we don't know what developers are going to do and what projects they're going to have, and so we're under on that this year. The sanitation fund, the revenue's right on at 99%. The expenditures, this is another one, part of that accounts payable true up. That right on June 30th, there was a payment made that went to the expenses, but some of it should have gone to the accounts payable and reduced it. So the expenses are going to come down by at least $42,000. So we are going to be within budget on that one. It just, normally that payment doesn't come out until July, but it got snuck in there on June 30th and it wasn't applied to the payable. So we'll be okay on that fund. And then the drainage, we're right on the revenue side, and on the expenditure side, we're under due to a project that didn't happen that was budgeted for. The telecom fund looks good, nothing out of the ordinary there. We still need to make the 5% transfer for the admin amount, and so we're currently calculating that, and we'll make that transfer for the next revision on the financials. And then the last one, the Whitaker, there's not a whole lot of activity. I mean, just some transfers from the RAP tax fund on the revenue side, and then some admin salary charges on the expenditure side. But any questions about any of that, or anything we want to look into more?
Any questions for him?
I mean, overall, it looks good. I mean, to be under budget like that, I mean, there were budget amendments made, but really the only budget amendment that did a whole lot was the one in the transportation fund to increase that from the road projects. And so pretty good estimate from the beginning of the year to not have to change it that much, so.
Do you have any idea of what may come in over the next month?
Well, I mean, we bumped up the budget in the transportation fund about over $600,000. And not a whole lot came in June. So I'm estimating, I mean, Jake might know more, but I'm guessing we're gonna see 400,000 or 500,000.
Yeah, it's gonna be about that, 400,000 or 500,000 in streets. And then I did tell you about the 18-wheeler, plan on that one here any day. And then we also have a police vehicle we're still waiting on. I forgot about that one as well.
So with the police vehicle, more than likely it'll have to be bumped into our current fiscal year. So you'll see a budget amendment come your way. Since we didn't receive it in FY19, we'll need to increase it in FY20. That way the police department doesn't miss out on a vehicle.
So we'll have to use some fund balance.
Correct. So the transportation fund, the slurry seal is a big part of that, and that's a $400,000 that we awarded. So we're waiting for all the invoices to come back on that one. So that's a big part of that.
But other than that, I don't think we have any other significant accounts payable.
Okay.
No.
Marcus, you have more?
No, that's it. Well,
Before he sits down, anything else from council? Okay, thanks so much.
yeah, thank you.
You'll keep us informed, right?
That's right.
Okay. Thanks, Marcus, for all you do. Great. Item number 7 on our agenda tonight is the mayor's report. This is my opportunity to report on a couple of events that have happened in the last couple of weeks. Since we met on July 2nd, of course, we had some great 4th of July festivities. We had the night of the 3rd in the park, and then we had the night of the 4th in the park and the parade. And comments I've received back, it appears that everybody enjoyed the festivities. We'll be working with the committee, the 4th of July committee. I have thanked some of them already, but we'll be working to pull together final numbers and a report from them on that. So hopefully all of you enjoyed your time as well too with that. Many of you knew that a gas line was hit today over at one of our elementary schools. At Stewart Elementary, they closed main between Chase and 1300 North. But the Chief Bassett says that, yeah, it was fixed and it was open. That's, and so, yeah, I don't know if you all knew about that. And then going along those lines, of course, within the last couple of weeks, and we had a couple of pipe breaks, and Randy Randall reported on that in an email today. I just want to report from my standpoint. I was able to go there for about an hour between 7 and 8, and then that night, and the chief was there, and Brent was there, and then I went back again after they had the problem fixed from about 10 to midnight. Just wanted to take the opportunity to go to see the work that they were doing, get some pictures, and to see our Public Works Department hard at work getting that taken care of. You've all heard reports on that, what they speculate took place, so I won't go into more of that, but that was a good experience for me to be able to see them take care of a problem. Thanks, Scouts. See ya. It's like my wife said to me, people without water for 4 or 5 hours, and so many other countries in the world, they don't even have water at all. I mean, we're so fortunate, and they just, 100 of our residents went without water for 4 or 5 hours was all. I went to the sales tax reform seminar or panel that they had up in Layton at the convention center a week ago Monday night. This is something that a panel of about 15, 20 people are doing. Brent was there as well too. 15 or 20 people that are on this panel. I think we have one from our city. I think Keith Prescott still lives here in Centerville. He is on the panel. He's a retired CPA that I know, and then there's some state representatives and senators. They have like 2 or 3 seminars left. They were doing a road show around the state. And this is to gather information to bring a bill this coming session to replace a House Bill 441, which came out late last year and which was killed quickly. And so there's not any bill written yet, but there was a lot of questions asked. They gave people in the audience about 90 seconds to report about their concerns. Mayor Talbot reported from the League of City and Towns, and of course our position there of protecting our position of the amount of sales tax we receive and the 50-50 formula in other areas. So that was highly enlightening, and enjoyed that. So we'll see where that continues to come out. There'll be committee meetings, I'm sure, and hopefully something is drafted earlier this time around. And then the only thing else I have to report is I have my regular meetings with Brant, and one thing I expressed to him is I wanted to make sure that that the city deals with the management issues and that we deal with the legislative issues. Not that there's been any problem there, but I just like that big separation in government, you know, executive, legislative, and judicial. So I always look to you, council, to make sure that we tackle the tough legislative issues. And then I think the only other thing I have is on the Community Foundation. A name was submitted to myself, and I contacted Rick Martin. With the foundation, I don't always get the resumes like I do for other committees, but I told you a little about Rick. He has been involved with Rotary for a long time. He's in the benefit business with big benefits and Bountiful. And John Hollingshead is the one that submitted his name, feeling that he would be a good resource for the foundation and helping out in the community through the foundation. So I would look to see if I could get a motion to approve Rick Martin for the Community Foundation.
We don't have him on the agenda. Do we need an official agenda item for board appointment?
No, not at this time, but I wouldn't mind going to that point where we actually list the name and maybe even an expiration term. So it's not required. Well, let me defer to Lisa. I mean, we haven't in the past, is what I'm saying, is we haven't in the past, but.
Okay, because I've seen it the other way where we always have something about board appointments, and this one doesn't have it, so I'm just making sure.
Yeah, I think the legal standard is that we specify with reasonable specificity what's on the agenda so people know, but on the appointments, I think in recent past the mayor's been bringing it up during the mayor's report, but I agree with Brant. I think it'd be a good idea to just say, yeah, we have some appointments. And usually if we know there's going to be an appointment as staff, we would put it on there, but so we
I
could
do like
certainly
the
do it
idea
that
of
way.
the term. So we've never just, I don't think we've ever talked about the length of term for anyone, have we?
And when it gets to a point, we talk about maybe renewal at that point, but at least we give some deadline, so when we have volunteers that they get burnt out, right? And so you give them a deadline, hey, you're going to be done in 2024, whatever it might be. At least there's an end date. We might renew them after that, but at least they have the light at the end of the tunnel.
They're done?
That's right.
Okay.
Well, actually, we have a complicated chart that shows all the terms, because most of the founding documents or the ordinances for our committee specifically states the term. And it's only a shorter term if they're filling an expired or, someone left early, so.
I remember the last time we went through that matrix to clean things up.
And I have in the past been working with McKinsey and Lisa, now Leah and Lisa. Generally, we will slot somebody in to finish out a term if somebody had to resign. Sometimes Lisa said it's okay that they just start a new term, especially if they're, is that true or not true, Lisa, if there's a little time remaining, or?
No, usually
do
they
we all-
fill
do
the
always have 'em
unexpended
fill-
term, and then you could always reappoint them. I mean, maybe if it was a month before, then perhaps that,
Yeah.
we just said that's the term, but typically it's the unexpired and then renew, so that the dates stay, because usually we try to appoint half the committee, that expires 1 year, and then the other half the next, or if it's 3-year terms, so that they're staggered terms, so you're not refilling the whole board. And so if you go to that practice of doing it, then it really complicates the expiration dates and the staggering of the members.
The foundation about a year ago was expanded to, most of our committees are 7 members. That was committed to where we can have 11, I believe. And so then that was from the standpoint of because the foundation members are fundraisers and also they do a lot of physical work and like doing the police week and that type of thing as well too. So those bylaws were amended by Lisa about a year ago. So we have a little we can have more members on that. We are presently, other than Planning Commission, full, and so I'll be looking to present another name to you for Planning Commissioner because Kai Hinsey needed to take an assignment with his job in Russia. And so we're down one planning commissioner there. So I will make sure that when it comes to a planning commissioner, that we look to have that on the agenda for sure with the planning commissioner.
I'm fine either way. This was the first time I'd seen it that way.
So,
but I like the planning commissioner being an official item.
Okay.
I'd make a motion that we approve the nomination for the Community Foundation.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Any other questions from me, council? On anything? Okay, great. Thank you. City Manager Report, number 8.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Just to go back to the tax reform discussion. So I want to clarify. It wasn't sales tax. Actually, everything is on the table with the state at this point.
You're right. Everything, but sales tax was discussed a lot.
Yeah.
But
Sales
right.
tax was discussed a lot. Property tax, income tax.
Tax reform in general. You're right.
Correct. So. So it was a really good discussion, and I think a lot of people actually had some really good ideas on how to tackle some of these issues, and then also it was brought up that a lot of people don't understand how the tax system works here in the state of Utah, and how the state collects their tax through income tax and sales tax, and how cities, like for example, one comment was made, if housing values are going up $100,000 on median average, well then cities should be collecting more property tax in general, and that's not the case, right? So there's two dynamics here. The state trying to preserve their pot. Again, we're not in dire situation of this. The state is not saying we need a lot more money than necessarily, but we just have to shift on how the taxes are collected. And I think one of the arguments I would agree that we need to avoid taxing services. I think that's a disservice to our businesses here in the state, especially if you're competing against other businesses in other states. You're going to lose out. We're going to see businesses, especially the services type businesses, leave the state and go to more favorable states. And so I think that was shared quite a bit in this meeting. Again, Mayor said an hour and a half. They had, minute and a half, 90 seconds to share their piece, and it went on for 2.5 hours of hearing people share kind of their thoughts and ideas. It was actually enlightening to me. And I think the state, or at least this task force, really does care about what to do with it. They want to hear people's opinions. After each comment was made, the chair would ask, who agrees with that? And they would have clap or raise hands. And so they got to get a good idea of what the community and residents of the state really are thinking about, or what they support. Education was huge. It was really interesting. Of course, you see a lot of people supporting our education and increasing that funding. I saw a lot of senior citizens not supporting that initiative when the opportunity came. But you see that, but again, that division, you're seeing that division on the focus on what we're doing with the state. And I think that gives us a true idea of what the challenge we have is trying to figure out where this state going. How do we keep our taxes low, because that's what we're known for as brought in businesses, but yet continue to collect enough revenue, support the services that we need to provide or should provide. So.
And thank you for bringing up sales tax and services. I have a bias. I'm fighting hard against that with my profession, so I didn't bring it up, but thanks.
But I think it's a fair argument, and we've heard that quite a bit. I think that's just a terrible idea. There was talk about amending the Constitution to change how income tax and education work, as well as the gas tax and all that. Now, I've seen in other states where they sweep taxes from different funds, and I think that's a terrible idea to say gas tax should pay for education. No, gas tax should pay for roads. And in the state of Arizona, they swept the gas tax to pay for Department of Public Safety for DPS terrible idea. You're taking away from cities to take care of the roads, so you can give it to the officers, the patrol. They're saying, well, they use our roads, so that's our justification. That's terrible. Keep the pots separate, and that was brought up a number of times. Stop pulling. If one pot is doing really well, evaluate that pot. Maybe you can reduce it because things have changed. If one pot's doing terrible, then you need to increase that, but it should offset in some way. So anyway, it was a good discussion, and I'm curious to see what happens. Cameron and I have lunch scheduled for next week, so we're going to follow up and about this discussion and various other discussions and needs of Centerville. Planning Commission report, as you may have noticed, it wasn't on the agenda. I'm actually going to put it under City Manager report, but I don't think we need to necessarily have an agenda item for that. But we only have 2 items, so what I've asked is Mackenzie, and we'll include it in a weekly update as well going forward. I think that could be helpful if you're okay with that idea. 181 South Main Street, that's been discussed quite a bit, cup up and things like that. So that was brought up before the Planning Commission regarding their landscaping. The parking strip, they can do what they want to do on the parking strip. Right now we have gravel, but that's allowed in our ordinances. But what is being discussed is they are short 5 trees on their property. They're required to have 9, they have 4, so 5 trees will be planted, and they need to have 75% coverage of the area where you do see the xeriscape. So they'll be planting shrubs and they'll be taking care of that. So, and then we do have South Main Street corridor overlay discussion. That's continuing. And as far as any update on that, I don't know if Lisa, if you have how that discussion went with the Planning Commission.
Yeah, the Planning Commission is continuing to discuss the Main Street and working through some goals and trying to formulate ideas that will guide that design. So they're moving forward with that and spending quite a bit of time each meeting.
Are they calling them guiding principles? Is that what this is related to? Okay.
Yeah.
So they're developing guiding principles as they're going forward with the South Main Street. With that, I don't have anything else unless there's any questions for me.
Is it appropriate? And maybe what we do is we just do it by going and watching the YouTube of their meeting. But is it appropriate to get a detailed report of those guiding principles sometime before they submit them?
Well, I don't know. I think that's possible. Make sure they come to you to review. One thing I'd like to start doing, actually submitting the minutes, the approved minutes to council during, whether we attach it to a weekly update so you have the option to review those minutes. But if there's any other documents that might be associated with it, I don't think that would be a bad idea to include those with that weekly update.
Yeah, and if you're willing, it would be helpful to listen to the discussion because they are, having some debate about the planning in that area.
The one thing I found kind of fascinating by this planning commission is they truly have these deep debates that you don't see in a lot of planning commissions. They really do talk about both sides, and the ones that I've viewed on YouTube or in person have been fascinating to watch. I would encourage that because I think that discussion really speaks highly. They're not just coming up with an idea, this is it, and moving forward. It actually is debated just as we do here on council, which is what I love about this council. Same thing, deep discussion, and you talk about all the issues. So,
Thank you. Anything else? Okay, let's go to item number 9. This is minutes review and acceptance of 2 meetings. The June 27th special city council meeting and the July 2nd regular city council meeting. Any changes or discussion about those minutes?
Motion to accept the minutes as recorded.
Got a motion, and do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Great, thank you. Then item 10 on our agenda, we do have a need for a closed meeting. However, I would propose that we look to go to an RDA meeting to then come back to the city council meeting to go to that meeting. If somebody
Make a
wants to
motion
put
that we adjourn to an RDA meeting with the intent of returning to city council meeting.
Second.
All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Great. Thank you.